Hello everyone, my name is Edu and this is Ready Go Expat. After living 5 years in China, some people ask me, what is it like to be LGBT living in China? How close is the country? How open is it towards LGBT people in general? Not only the Chinese, but foreigners who go and live there. And in this video, I decided to share my experience and also invited 2 friends to talk about their experience being LGBT in China. Ready? Go.
I don't feel like it's such a big deal here. I feel like maybe because they're not as religious. I'm not saying that they're like, hey, gay, you. But I think maybe it's because they're not religious. They don't care about it as much. For example, I have friends, like Chinese friends who are gay, lesbians. Their parents don't really care as long as they have a kid. Like putting it that way, I know it sounds harsh, but I remember, for example, being back home, sometimes I would dress all black with eyeliner, and it was like a scandal, girl. And here, if I do that, yes, people will stare at me, but I'm a black person, like I walk outside, people will stare at me. So maybe I don't notice that much, but in comparison to being back home, I think it's much better. Like growing up there, like being bisexual, being LGBT was not easy. So when I come to a country like China, where they don't really care that much, it's not that big of a transition. And to be honest, I feel more comfortable here than I feel there. Here, if I wear makeup, it won't be such a huge deal as like if I do it back home. One of the things, because they'll look at you, they'll think, foreigners, these foreigners, they do horrible things.
Okay. Let's just all take a moment to marinate on what it must be like to be a black lesbian in China. Okay. So, first of all, anywhere that you go, there are fewer lesbian apps. Like, it's always the men. All the men have like the apps, the meetup things, the clubs, the bars. The gay, scene typically caters to men, okay? So that's just anywhere. In China, it's like that by like 800. But what is really funny is that when I first arrived here, like at my first outing, I met 3 other lesbians. And then they left me. But like 3 Canadian lesbians and a couple of them who were very good friends of mine. I still keep in touch with them and have visited them in Canada. But I definitely have not engaged much with the Chinese gay community. In bigger cities you can. There are like lesbian bars. There's one lesbian bar, I cannot remember the name right now, but Edu will find that and put it on the screen for you. But there's like a lesbian bar, and I've definitely been, I've gone to this bar a few times in Shanghai, and it's very comfortable, and it's, there's obviously gay people here, and actually I went like this huge New Year's Eve party at like a gay, it was like a gay party, like my first year here. Yeah, but I think you definitely have to seek it out. I definitely have not dated. I've not had like any sort of romantic situations here in China with other women, but I've made really good gay friends here who are in the expat community.
Well, to be very honest, I was very curious before moving to China. I was kind of worried about, being LGBT there and how things would be like. And here I'm talking specifically about mainland China. So I've lived for 5 years in China, one year in the north, Qingdao, and then the other 4 years in Nanchang and near Nanchang. In the central part of the country. So I didn't know much. I looked for it online, but at that time, before I moved there back in 2015, there was not much information online. Well, one thing that surprised me the most when I got to China is that they actually have an app called Blue D, which is similar to, let's say, Tinder or Grindr, and it's where most Chinese people use to meet people, to talk to people and stuff. And even if you're a foreigner and you download the app, and you want to chat, they can write in Mandarin and you can chat, translate it to English and reply in English. But this is where this is the app where most people try to use to find like people to meet and go out and stuff. But one of the things that I noticed as soon as I got there, is that it's very like hidden or put in the box or left aside. It's like, don't talk about it. Don't go on the streets with a rainbow flag or stuff like that, or But if you get, for example, to the largest cities like Beijing and Shanghai, there is a very active LGBT community. You have, bars that are catered to like lesbians, other to gay men. And that's open. That's like you walk on the street and you see the name of the bar and you see the rainbow flag. So that was surprising for me when I got to Beijing. And I actually went to this club called Destination, which is, I think, the largest gay club in China, and it's in Beijing. Also in Shanghai, there's this place called Luca, which is like a cafe during the day, and at night it's a bar and a disco, and it's there in the main streets. But if you go to a smaller city in China, and when I say small, that's for Chinese standards, like 8 million people in Qingdao, for example, or even, 5 million people in Nanchang, these smaller cities, the things are quite hidden. Even Hangzhou, which is a very popular city for tourists and for expats as well, very close to Shanghai, there it's kind of like you don't see the sign on the door of the club. You just go under and you just go down the stairs, and then you see that there's a club there. And in this specific club in Hangzhou, there was a drag show going on, and it was like amazing to see that there's still a gay community that is not as strong as you would see, in other countries like where I am now here in Colombia or in Brazil where I'm from. But it's still there, And that's one of the things that really surprised me. So even though I was in a club like Destination in Beijing and it was packed with people, it's still something that you wouldn't see guys holding hands, meaning like there are a couple there, or girls holding hands. Only if they're like friends they do that, but you're not going to see like couples, holding hands, hugging on the streets and stuff like that. So it's kind of something that they don't talk about. They don't want people to talk about. But it's like, well, you want to do your thing, meet people, go out, go on dates, do it, but don't let us know. So that's something that is very interesting in China. And also one of the other things is that, as you probably know, there is a culture in China of like, you need to get married and you need to have kids. So when I got there, they had a one-child policy, and then they changed to like the two-children policy recently in the last couple of years. But the thing is, whenever I met a guy who was over 30, it was like 90% chance, 99% chance that he was already married with a wife, with kids, or a kid only. And but he would still go out, and meet guys and stuff like that. So that was something that I found out the more I met guys who were like over 28, 30 years old. And then you have the younger generation that go to university, they meet other guys as well, but of course, because they're still at university, they're still in their early 20s, they're still single. But there's a very big pressure for kids, for guys and women to get married and have kids. And that's kind of actually, I think, the saddest part that I've seen there, because I met a lot of guys, like we became friends and stuff. We went out to talk about life, and they were not worried about telling me the stuff, because I'm not Chinese. I'm not going to tell their parents. I'm not going to tell their friends. And they were kind of like hidden. And some of them got married like to lesbians, and they were like married together, having the second life. They would have a kid, but still they would have their second lives as well at the same time. And I'm not saying I met like 1, 2, or 3. Like I met quite a lot of gay men who were married to women. Some of them were women, like the women's were like lesbian, or others were like straight women who didn't know about them. So it's this thing that you wouldn't believe could be happening nowadays, in 2022 in the world. But it is a fact there in China. Unfortunately, it's still a reality, and they still have to live this double life. It's very rare to have someone who told their parents, a guy who told their parents that he was gay, for example. There are a few that I met that actually told their parents, and their parents were like, okay, you can be whatever you want as long as you give me a kid, because that's really, really strong in China. But all in all, as long as like you don't tell or you don't show your co-workers that you're gay as a foreigner there, or you don't tell people about it. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Like if you're okay with that, of like not telling everyone or not being open, about being gay, then it's not at all unsafe to live there being gay. It's not at all unsafe to have a relationship there, as long as you keep it for yourself, which is what I've heard there from the Chinese themselves. So that was my experience there in China.